Hey, good morning, Bible nerds. My name is Chris Iwasko, and I am the area director for ministry here in Mid-County called Young Life. And we are an outreach organization to high school teenagers as well as middle school. Young Life, an international organization in every state in the U.S. as well as over 80 countries worldwide, and been around since about 1941. I've been in this role here in Mid-County for about 7 years now, and it's my honor to lead a team of Jesus-loving, teenage-loving adults who take it upon themselves to go into the world of teenagers and bring the message of hope and love of Jesus. And we do so by earning the right to be heard through mentorship friendships. And we are supported fully by our community. So really honored to be asked by Carrie to be a part of this study over the birth of Jesus and coming at it from different angles. So hey, let's look at some passages of Scripture. Start with Luke 2, verse 1. Luke 2:1. Now in those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that a census be taken of all the inhabited earth. And then in Matthew 2, verse 1 also, Matthew 2:1. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod, the king, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem. And so there you see in both of those two accounts, this use of the phrase "in those days." And we have listed some pretty notable figures in human history: Caesar Augustus, Herod the Great. And I don't think that the Bible scholars here, the Bible authors rather, are just like, bumping up their word quota. I think those aren't throwaway words. That they're giving us context, important context, and just as the way that any author would, they have a particular audience in mind, and their audience, Matthew's audience, Luke's audience, I think that they would have picked up on, maybe subconsciously, the implication of name-dropping Herod, name-dropping Caesar Augustus, and the days that they're associated with. And so I want to talk about that. Well, in the days of the Nativity, I want to talk about the fact that Jesus is born into human existence at a very specific time. So specific that Paul would even refer to it at the fullness of time in Galatians 4:4. And the author of Hebrews in chapter 9, verse 26 would even call it the consummation of the ages, the culmination of the ages. Something about this particular crossroads of time in human history, God the Father, in his infinite wisdom, zeroed in on and said, this is the proper time for the arrival of my son. All right, so we have a little bit of a history lesson that we have to go through for us to get to the answer to why this time period was so important. Alexander the Great, he was an evangelist of his own, and he had a euangelion. He had a gospel that he would proclaim to these new conquered lands, and he would come in and he would say, Greece is here, you lucky dogs. And he brought in a worldview that has come to be known as Hellenism. A couple of key factors of Hellenism. If you were to give it a slogan, Hellenism, it's all about me. It's full-on humanism. The gods are no longer the center of the story. They now exist to serve me. They now exist to help my world and my experience be better. Man is now the center. Gods, think about like Egypt, or think about maybe like Hinduism. Then you've got these gods that are half bird, half human, or an elephant with 6 arms. Okay, Hellenism introduces this idea that the gods actually look a lot like us, and we can relate to the gods in a very different way than we could with these beastly looking kind of gods. Gods now are made in man's image. It's all about my preferences. It's all about my comfort. It's all about my leisure, my security, my desire, my. I don't think they had Burger King back then, but the phrase "have it your way" or "you rule" that Burger King is using now, part of their tags in their marketing, dripping in Hellenism. And they're not the only business out there that does it this way. And so much of our world today is steeped in Greco-Roman Hellenism. A couple of the pillars of Alexander's great gospel of Hellenism. Number one, I'm going to bring you education, and that's going to control thought and influence thought. I'm going to bring you healthcare, and that's going to bring you security, and it's going to bring the control of security, the allure, maybe even the mirage of security. He's going to bring you, the third one is entertainment, and that's going to be influencing your desires. Through the arts, we're going to begin to sway how you think about things and influence what you want out of life. And then the fourth one, the athletics, and think about like the Olympic Games and things like that. This is going to control your human desire for competition, and it's going to embed in us now a need for tribal identity, an us versus them. And Alexander thought that that was a very valuable thing and when it comes to controlling a people group. His successors don't spread this worldview solely through military might. Yes, they're going to have armies, but it's going to be more through the subversive, attractive appeal of Hellenism. You want this. You need this. Why would you fight this? This is a good thing. Embrace Hellenism. These are morally neutral comforts that will lull you into being easily controlled. Think about the phrase that we think in the gladiatorial time period, bread and circus. Entertain them, feed them. They're going to just give you control when you do that. And that's exactly what happens. It becomes really, really hard not to adopt Hellenism. Okay, so then fast forward to roughly the year 63 BC, and the rulership of Judea, the rulership of the Jews, the Hasmoneans. Not going to be on the quiz, but they become fully Hellenized. Now, this is the ruling class of the Jews. Eventually, they will become known by the name in the Bible. You'll see them referred to as the Sadducees. They were totally corrupt, totally sold out, and they were the ruling class. Think like the mafia in a lot of ways. Several families, like maybe 7 or so families, key families that control the entire lands, the laws, the temple, the affairs of the day, all rolled up into these very few people, these very few families, the Sadducees. All right, we had a little time lapse here. I'm going to read something to you. This was inscribed on a plaque at a temple in the extended area of Palestine several decades before the birth of Jesus. Notice some of the language used. Citizens of Priene, since divine providence has brought to life the most perfect good in Augustus, whom she filled with virtues for the benefit of all mankind, bestowing on us Augustus Caesar as savior of the world, for he has put an end to war and brought perfect peace. By the advent of his birth, he brought the gospel of peace, the euangelion, the gospel of peace to all mankind. For that reason, the Greeks of Asia have on this day declared that the new year should begin from now on the 23rd day of September, the day of the birth of this God. Never will another gospel surpass the gospel that was announced at his birth. He is not only Lord of the empire, but Lord of the earth and of the calendar and of time itself. Woo. All right, so it is clear that whoever wrote this thought quite a bit about our boy Caesar Augustus. This is the kind of world, cultural landscape that Jesus is born into, where the Caesar is not just viewed as an emperor, he is viewed as a God, a gift from God to us, and brings in peace and brings in an end to war. And again, several decades before the birth of Jesus, and it's no coincidence that the authors of the New Testament choose the words they do, that Jesus Christ is Lord of all, or the King of Kings, or they're saying something in contrast to the world that they live in. These were not necessarily spiritual concepts. They were saying no, not Caesar, but Jesus. So anyway, that's a part of the world that Jesus is born into in those days. The Caesar was this powerful God-man, and you want to stay on his good side. Caesar Augustus ushers in something called the Pax Romana, and I'm going to butcher this, but basically this was a compromise with these conquered, occupied areas. You can keep your customs, you can keep your laws, you can keep your local rulers, but you're going to do so with the acceptance of our taxation. You're going to do so with oftentimes us incorporating your able-bodied men into our armies, and you can do that with our military occupation in your lands. So this is the peace that Caesar Augustus brings to the world. All right, so how does Herod come into the picture at all? Well, Herod is the son of a king of the Idumea Nabatea. basically these are Edomites. And so if you're familiar with your Old Testament, Edom from the line of Esau. And so these are not Jews. And this particular family, this particular king, Herod's father, is the ruler of the entire spice trade at this time. It is a monopoly, and all of the spice trade funnels up to one person. And whenever his father dies, he becomes the heir of this empire. History holds that Herod is disgustingly wealthy. Arguably the wealthiest man who ever lived, and that's without exaggeration. And yes, that includes our boy Solomon. And so the Sadducees see the shadow of Rome approaching now that they've taken over from the Greeks, and they see the Romans coming as a threat to them and their power and their positions of influence and the comfortable life that they've worked out for themselves. And so they come up with an idea. They're going to court Rome by bringing to the table the wealth of Herod. And so they go to Herod and they tell him that they would like to have him be the king of the Jews. And so Herod sees this as a very good idea and understands the game that they're playing. And so they form an alliance, basically, as this Sadducee ruling family, religious leader mafia with Herod and with Rome. And that secures Rome the money that they need to continue their empire, and that affords Herod a tremendous access to the emperor of the entire world for his business and for his name and influence to expand. Herod builds incredible architecture and cities. He was many things: vicious, arrogant, ambitious, shrewd, and, like I said, an incredible builder. He built the temple of Jesus' day. Historians have no idea how he built that, moved stone, the size of those stones, with the technology that they're aware of. Herod having at his beck and call. The city of Bethlehem is not too far away from another one of Herod's works, and it's the palace fortress of Herodias. And it's inside of a mountain. And here's the catch. That area, there are no mountains, and Herod wanted a mountain. And so what did he do? He had a mountain built. He built into a mountain this luxurious palace fortress that he would use to entertain foreign dignitaries. And it was finally the place of his mausoleum. And pools and rooms upon rooms upon rooms. There's an amphitheater in Herodias that even had its own skybox for the elite class, the elite of the elite. So Herod plays the game well. He was just Jewish enough for the Sadducees, and he was plenty Hellenized for Rome. And so Herod brings the gospel of wealth and really represents that I want it, I buy it kind of lifestyle. And of course, as you follow along in the story of the Nativity, Herod the Great is he's responsible for the murder of countless babies, boys 2 years and under, in the city of Bethlehem and the surrounding area. So he is vicious, paranoid, wants to keep his power, does not like the idea of sharing his power at all. And Caesar brings the gospel of empire. And so the empire of Hellenism, the empire of wealth, the gospel of all of these things coming together almost at a fever pitch, and not just in some backwoods corner of the earth. Now, we might think of it like that in our Western eyes, in our Western thought, but at this time, the crossroads of the world pass through the nation of Israel. It is a prime location. This is not happening in some backwoods area. This is happening at a very meaningful location geographically. And so we see things coming to a head, like the authors of the scriptures call the perfect time, the culmination of the ages. And then I love what Mark does whenever he opens his gospel, chapter 1, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. In the shadow of the gospel of Hellenism, the gospel of Herod, the gospel of Rome, Jesus is born into a manger. not a powerful family, not an esteemed location, not with a last name that matters, not with great opulent wealth, none of the things that the world around him, the world around the Jews, is going to claim any value. He's kind of a nobody. He's very obscure. And this is the beginning of the gospel of Jesus. And why I love the Christmas story is it helps me see that message anew every year, that what Jesus is calling me into is going to be subversive, and it's going to fly in the face of the culture that I live in today, which mirrors very well the pillars of Hellenism, and super hard to get away from it in today's age with the luxury. And as a Christian, I'm talking the luxuries of life, the conveniences of the bells and the whistles of the gadgets, and the man, my car doesn't have heated seats, and and again, you have to hold this in tension, and I think that's a big part of the invitation of Jesus, is to hold these things in tension. What's the appropriate amount of luxury, of leveraging my resources for personal betterment? I don't know if I just made up a word, or for the gospel of Jesus, the true King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And so I'm going to leave us kind of with that pregnant question out there. What is the right amount? But this baby in this manger in the shadow of the Herodias asks us to ask ourselves that very question.